What's up everyone, it's Dakota and welcome back to another Pioneer video, and today we're going to be taking a look at a sorta mid-range slash like combo-y pod like 5 color deck in the Pioneer format, and I think it's a deck that kind of goes over the top of a lot of the decks in the format, and has proven itself to be very, very good. And getting to play against it a few times, I've kind of like felt firsthand about how powerful that this deck can be. So today we're going to take a look at the 5 color Fires of Invention deck featuring Keruga, the Macro Sage, as the companion. Of course, before we get too deep into it, if you are not already subscribed to the channel and you want to see more videos like this, along with modern content and other essay type videos, then go ahead and subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell so you get notified when those videos get uploaded. If you go into the description of this video, I have a few links, one going directly to the deck list if you want to go check out the deck while I'm going over it, or if you want to download the list and everything, go right to the website. There's also a link to my Twitch channel. Go ahead, follow me over on Twitch, so get notified when I go live over there. And the Discord server as well is down there. You can go ahead, follow that link, and feel free to join. So 5 colors, fires of invention is for some reason just a hard sentence for me to say. So the idea is that you're a Fires of Invention deck, which if you played back when this card was in standard, was essentially like making sure you hit your land drop every turn and playing super powerful spells, for free and getting to play multiple every turn. So specifically for those not initiated to it, Fires of Invention says that you can cast spells only during your turn and you cannot cast more than 2 spells each turn. So essentially, you're stuck just playing 2 spells on your turn with Fire's Invention. And, whatever. You may cast spells with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of lands you control without paying your mana cost. So Fire's Invention has this restriction of you can only play spells on your turn and you can only cast 2 spells. With the upside of if you have 5 lands, you can play anything with 5 converted mana cost or less without paying its mana cost. So essentially, what you'll end up seeing here is like you'll have Fires of Invention, and you want to play like a 4 drop, which this deck plays a pretty decent amount of like 4 drops. And it is playing a lot of powerful creatures. As we see, we have cards like Clever Impersonator, which can copy any non-land permanent on the battlefield. Lets you double up on cards like Agent of Treachery and Titan of Industry. If your opponent's playing anything good, like you can also copy like one of their Planeswalkers. Copying one of your legendary creatures is not very good, but there's a lot of very good legendary creatures. And we'll get to this one here in a second because it'll kind of go into the second part of it. So you have cards like Shieldred. We know Shieldred's very powerful. Super good card to play at 4 mana. You can play a Fire's Invention and then immediately cast a Shieldred for free, and you're kind of like set up from there. It's going to gain you life every time that you draw cards. So, you're going to gain 2 life every turn. You're going to slowly drain your opponent, and eventually you kind of turn the corner and attack your opponent with it. You have Elish Norn, the mother of machines, old mommy, a permanent. You'd basically get to double up on your enter the battlefield triggers, and your opponent's permanents don't trigger when they enter the battlefield. Of course, being a 4/7, super hard to deal with like in combat, can get pretty aggressive as well. Just having a lot of toughness, playing offense and defense very well. Kenrith the Returned King, which is a card that was played in like these Fires decks a long time ago, and is you'll really see why. So Kenrith is a 5 mana 5/5. You play this on your other turn. So like you play your 5th land, and then you get to play this, and then you could give all your creatures trample and haste until end of turn. So that allows like your Shieldreds, Elishnorns, or whatever, not only to be able to attack like the turn that you play them if you activate this, but also trample over some of your opponent's smaller creatures. Like they're not going to be able to just chump block your creatures. Like they are going to have to get some big dudes to get in the way. You can pay a green and 1 to put a counter on a creature you control, +1/+1 counter. You can pay 2 and a white, target player gains 5 life, 3 and a blue, a target player draws a card, 4 and a black, put target creature from a graveyard onto the battlefield under its owner's control. So you have a plethora of options to do with this. It's kind of good in all the matchups. You know, if you just have all this mana to play with, you know, we're saying you play this on like turn 5 for free off of fires. You know, you're able to give all your creatures haste, and then you're also able to put 2 counters on a creature. You're able to gain 5 life. You're able to draw a card. You know, which if you have like or a shielded in play, excuse me, it's also going to gain you some life. So, you know, this kind of is like a way to like grind people out where like you can, you know, draw a card every turn, and you know, you're obviously casting your spells. That's going to help you hit your land drops so that you can start playing some of these bigger things and get up to cards like Tolsimir, Friend of Wolves, and these Agent of Treacheries, Atraxas, Titan of Industry, so on and so forth. Can make just your board bigger, and then obviously eventually just being able to give them trample to end up one-shotting your opponent. Aggro decks, you just gain 5-10 life a turn. You know, they're not going to be able to really keep up with it. And of course, if your opponent just gets rid of all your creatures, well, then you can just spend 5 mana and start getting them back from the graveyard, and then getting to continue to uh, attack and you know really get in there. And of course, if you have 6 mana, you can just give them all haste and bring something back, give them haste, trample, and beat down your opponent until the game's over. We briefly went over Tolsmere by mentioning it by name. It makes a 3/3 when it enters, and when a wolf enters the battlefield you control, you gain 3 life, and it fights up to one target creature you don't control. You have Agent of Treachery, which steals a permanent, and at the beginning of your end step, if you control 3 or more permanents you don't own, you draw 3 cards, which can be done with, doubling up triggers off Elish Norn, Clever Impersonating Agent of Treachery. You could start like drawing extra cards that way. Atraxa, some people are very much well introduced to this card because it told us about the battle type, a battle card type. But it enters the battlefield, and you reveal the top 10 cards, and for each card type, you put a type from that from among the revealed cards to your hand. The rest of the bottom of your library in any order. 7/7 is absolutely huge. Gets to play offense and defense by having vigilance. Death touch. It's kind of like death touch on like Shieldred, where it's like it's probably going to beat whatever it's facing in combat anyway. Like the death touch is kind of like irrelevant, but does have the ability to trade up with some of like the other bigger monsters that are in the format. Has flying, lifelink, so you're just getting to gain a bunch of life is also pretty bad for those aggressive decks. Lastly, you have Titan of Industry, 7 mana, 7/7, reach, trample, and when it enters the battlefield, you choose 2. You can destroy an artifact or enchantment. Target player gains 5 life. You can make a 4/4 or put a shield counter on a creature you control, which essentially means that I believe if it would be destroyed, I think even like targeted by like a spell, you remove the shield counter and essentially like counter the spell or ability or whatnot. So, a bunch of creatures that are very good in conjunction with like Elishnorn, Mother of Machines, cards that aren't like too bad to be like copied with like Clever Impersonator because they do have some pretty good ETB triggers. And while just that game plan in itself, of just playing your lands, playing cards like Fires of Invention, and then getting to cast cards for free would be pretty good. This deck does have another access that it acts on, which is the card Enigmatic Incarnation. So it's a 4 mana enchantment, and at the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice another enchantment. And if you do, you search the library for a creature card with converted mana cost equal to 1 plus the sacrifice enchantment's mana cost, and you put that card on the battlefield. So these enchantments that you see here, they conveniently end up going into some of your other cards. So you have like Fable of the Mirror Breaker, Temporary Lockdown, Touch Spirit Realm as like your 3 drops, and you can sacrifice these and go get your Clever Impersonator. You can go get a Heliod, which I conveniently like glossed over because when it enters the battlefield, you can return an enchantment card that isn't a god card from your graveyard to your hand. So this allows you to pick up like a artifact that you just or an enchantment, excuse me, that you just sacrificed. Even just getting to play this, and like you got rid of like a Leyline Binding, so you could go get one of these 7s out of your deck. You can just pick it back up with the Heliod. The other side, is fine, but it doesn't really work well with Fires of Invention being out, but is also pretty good for being able to like do things on your opponent's turn as well if you don't have a Fires of Invention going. Of course, like you have Enigmatic and other Fires of Inventions. Enigmatic being able to like get rid of a Fires of Invention is kind of a way that you can reduce the downside. You just cast, all the free spells that you can cast, sacrifice at the end step, go get an Elishnorn, go get a Kenrith, go get a Tolsmir, whatever you need, and then just like kind of like attack down your opponent's board, gain a bunch of life with the, mana that you're able to spend with like Kenrith, so on. Of course, like with Elishnorn, getting double up on the triggers. Something I wanted to point out with the Heliod is also a enchantment creature, so you could sacrifice this and go get like an Elishnorn, Kenrith, so on. So this deck definitely has some layers to it. You have, again, like these cards, like Touch the Spirit Realm. There's about 50 exile up to one target artifact or creature until it leaves the battlefield, but it has the channel ability, and this is like a way that you can get around the Claws of Fire's invention of only getting to do things on your turn. So, like, you can do this exile artifact creature, return to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. So you could do that on your opponent's turn, and you're not technically casting a spell. You are, activating a channel ability of that card. Same thing with like Otawara and like Beseiju. You channel those cards, so you're able to do those things even if you're like underneath a fire sub-invention. And this deck can pretty reliably like cast like its spells and everything. Like this deck is definitely, if it gets the Enigmatic Incarnation engine going or the Fires of Invention engine going, this deck is very powerful. If it gets both going, it's just the ball definitely gets rolling. You have to kind of like get after it early, and really not play like a middle to long game against a deck like this, because their top end is just way better than what everyone else is like playing in the format. And really, like, mono green is like the only deck that maybe wants to go longer, that could have the potential of kind of going over the top of a deck like this, but it's usually shut down pretty hard by like Elishnorn and things like that, and just trying to play like that fair game and not combo off like they normally try to do with all these ETBs and playing extra lands and so on. And yeah, that is the 5-color invention deck for the Pioneer format, with Keruga as the companion. Obviously, with all of these high costed cards and everything, and Keruga's restriction of playing cards with mana value 3 or greater, definitely is an interesting like deck building like restriction per se. But all in all, like this card just ends up generating so much card advantage. Even if you just on a turn play like Fires Enigmatic, and you don't even like like sacrifice the Fires to go get a Elishnorn, and then you're just able to play like another Fires and do a bunch of other things. Like eventually you get to the point where like Keruga just like draws like a bunch of cards, and you're up, to 12 cards in hand. Your opponent has 2, and you have access to like all these creatures and different ways to go get them, whatever. It's, pretty amazing. Like watching this deck go off is a lot of fun, and it looks like a lot of fun to play. And I think I'm going to try to get some matches in with this. So if you want to see that, please leave a like on the video, comment down below, what Pioneer decks that you want to see played on the channel and stuff. And yeah, that's going to do it for me. I hope you all enjoyed. Again, if you're not subscribed to the channel, I would appreciate it if you subscribed, ring the notification bell so you know when those videos get posted. Follow the links in the description down below. That's going to do it for me. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all in the next one.